We're diving into a really dense, visionary, and let's be honest, pretty radical text. This isn't just another critique of the world as we know it. Nope, this is an architectural blueprint for building an entirely new one. The Manifesto kicks things off with this really powerful idea. For a long time, the intellectual focus has been on taking apart old, broken systems, deconstructing them. But, after you've taken everything apart, what's next? The Manifesto argues the real challenge now is to start building.
And that's the big question, right? How do you actually create a new reality from just words and concepts? Well, according to this manifesto, the very first step is to get a clear picture of the prison we're already in.
So before you can plan an escape, you've got to understand the layout of the prison. And the Manifesto is clear. This trap isn't made of physical walls and bars. It's made of a very specific and very limiting way of thinking. And here's where we get to the heart of the problem. It argues that the issue isn't just a collection of bad policies or historical missteps, but a fundamental architecture of thought that shapes everything and, more importantly, limits what we even think is possible. The Manifesto even gives this prison a name: autoanthropology. Just think of it as this deep-down assumption that humans are somehow separate from the world, that we are the observers, and everything else is just an object for us to measure, analyze, and, well, use. This slide here just lays out the difference perfectly. On the left, you've got autoanthropology. It always starts with the individual I, before the we. It sees the world as a thing to be dissected, and knowledge is something to be extracted, to be taken. But on the right, the alternative is all about relationships. We exist because we relate. The world isn't an object, it's a network. And knowledge? That's communion, a shared experience, not a resource you can just mine. Okay, so if that's the present, what's the escape plan? This is where the Manifesto really shines, because it doesn't just offer up a critique, it gives us a blueprint for a real structural alternative. Let's see how it says we can start building.
The core metaphor for this new reality is what it calls the second house. This is our escape from the first house. That's the inherited colonial way of thinking we all grew up in. But here's the key. The second house is a manifesto you can actually build and live in, both physically and metaphysically.
So what makes this second house so different? Well, first off, it's a palimpsest. Just imagine a scroll where new layers of knowledge are constantly written over the old ones, but without erasing what was there before. So ancient cosmology can sit right next to quantum theory and AI-generated data. They all interact. And crucially, there's no central boss. Authority is spread out across the network. It's basically a living laboratory for a new way of being. Now we're getting to the heart of it. A house this complex needs a seriously powerful engine. And in the Manifesto, that engine is called delta T squared. So, what in the world is that? I know, it's a mouthful, but the easiest way to think of delta T squared is as the operating system for the second house. It's the protocol, the model for how to think, relate, and build in this new reality. And it's not a static theory. The Manifesto calls it a living epistemic engine, meaning it's a system for generating new knowledge that's always evolving. It's the code that makes this new world run. This engine works along two intersecting axes. The first is familial covenantal. That's all about deep, long-term human stuff, relationships, community, vows, commitment. The second is neurotheopoetic. This is about consciousness, perception, and using new tools like AI to expand our imagination. The real power, the real magic, happens right where these two lines cross, combining profound human connection with new, expanded ways of thinking. And the whole thing is held up by four pillars. First, instead of just criticizing everything, you affirm and you build. Second, you take ancient wisdom and graft it onto future tech. Third, you recognize that the spaces you live in actually shape how you think. And fourth, you stop seeing time as a straight line heading to some finish line and start seeing it as a spiral that you're constantly revisiting and deepening. This brings us to a really fundamental idea in the Manifesto. If you want to think new thoughts, you're going to need new words. You just can't build a new world using the vocabulary that built the old one. The Manifesto is really clear on this point. The language we inherit, it's a cage. To break out, it says we literally have to create new words that work like new cognitive organs, allowing us to perceive and think about things that were literally unthinkable before. Let's look at a couple of examples. First, kinemagora. This word mashes up roots from the Mende language and ancient Greek. It's imagining a space that isn't just a marketplace where you debate ideas, but a place where wisdom itself is treated as a living presence, a person in the room. Then we have rhylotechnics.
This is the art of making sure that futuristic tech, like AI, is deeply connected to ancestral wisdom, to what it calls covenantal soil. This is how you stop technology from becoming rootless and destructive.
And finally, Prometopia, which is a totally new spin on the idea of utopia. It suggests that the goal isn't arriving at some perfect destination in the future. Instead, the fulfillment is the act of building toward that future. The journey itself becomes the reward.
So, you have a new house, you have a new engine, you have a whole new language. But what is it all for? What is the actual, ultimate goal of this massive, complex project? This is where the Manifesto contrasts its vision with something often called accelerationism. Standard accelerationism can sometimes be linked with nihilism, with embracing collapse. But this version, joyful Afro-optimist-oriented accelerationism, is the polar opposite. It's not about embracing the void. It's about accelerating toward a future of abundance and care, fueled by connection and aiming for escape velocity from a world of scarcity.
And this might be the most radical idea in the entire text. Joy is completely reframed. It's not a fleeting emotion, it's a technology. Think of it like a key performance indicator or a sensor. It's the tangible, felt signal that tells you a relationship with your community, your tools, your world is healthy and working.
So ultimately, when you boil it all down, the entire project is designed to do one thing: generate so much joy and amplify so much care that it achieves escape velocity, that it breaks free completely from the gravitational pull of the old world's scarcity and anxiety.
We'll end with this final thought from the Manifesto. It suggests that this new world isn't something we're forcing into existence. Instead, it's a future that is already calling out to us, and all our work is just about building the cradle to receive it. A truly provocative and beautiful idea to leave you with.